In this video, we will explore the 2001 film Shrek. We will talk about the movie story, give a clear summary of the plot, and take a look at the main cast and characters. In addition, we will discuss the film's production detail and examine its box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews and personal reactions to the movie. So let's get started. The animated fantasy comedy Shrek is one of those rare movies that completely change the landscape of animated storytelling. Before diving into the plot or character, it is worth taking a moment to talk about why this film deserves a thoughtful discussion. When it was released in 2001 by DreamWorks Animation, it arrived at a time when most animated films follow a fairly traditional formula: bright fairy tale setting, heroic prince, and predictable happy ending. Shrek took those familiar elements and turned them upside down, creating a movie that felt fresh, clever, and surprisingly bold. To being with the genre of the film is a fascinating mix. At its core, Shrek is a fantasy adventure, but it is also strong comedy and clever parody of classic fairy tale. The movie playfully references well-known storybook characters and traditional fairy tale themes while humorously cautioning them. Instead of focusing on a handsome prince saving the day, the film centers on an unlikely hero, an ogre who simply wants to be felt alone. This unusual perspective allows the movie to explore themes of identity, acceptance, and the idea that appearance can be deceiving. Because of this, Shark feel both entertaining and meaningful, balancing humor with a message that resonates with audience of all age. Another important aspect worth discussing is the direction of the film. The movie was directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, who managed to blend comedy, storytelling, and visual creativity into a smooth and engaging experience. This approach allows the film to maintain a light-hearted tone while still delivering emotional moments. The director carefully paced the story so that the audience could enjoy the comedy without losing sight of the deeper message about friendship and self-acceptance. This balance between humor and heartfelt storytelling is one of the reasons the film continued to be discussed years after its release. The production style of the shark also play a major role in its impact. During the early 2000s, computer-generated animation was rapidly evolving, and DreamWorks wanted to showcase what the technology could achieve. The film uses detailed character animation, expressive facial movement, and richly designed environment, from the moody texture of shark swim to the bright and exaggerated castles of the fairy tale world. Every visual element helps create a distinctive atmosphere. The animation style does not aim to imitate reality perfectly. Instead, it exaggerates features and expression in a way that enhance the comedy and personality of the characters. Another key production choice was the use of modern humor and pop culture references. Rather than strictly following the style of traditional fairy tale, the film includes jokes, dialogue, and music that feel contemporary and playful. This decision helped the movie appeal not to children but also to teenagers and adults. The filmmaker understood that animation could reach a broader audience if the storytelling included multiple layers of humor and meaning. Of course, the performances also contribute greatly to the film's personality. Actors like Mike Meyer, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz brought energy and charm to their character, making them memorable and emotionally engaging. Their performance helped shape the unique tone of the movie, combining comedy with warmth and sincerity. Finally, Shark is worth discussing because it represents a turning point in animation history. The movie did not just entertain audience, it challenged expectation about what an animated fairy tale film could be. Its creative storytelling, distinctive humor, and strong production design helped it stand out in a crowded genre. In fact, its success was so significant that it went on to win the first ever Best Animated Feature award at the 74th Academy Award. For all of these reasons, the inventive genre blend, thoughtful directions, a distinctive production style, Shrek remain a film that is not only fun to watch but also fascinating to discuss. It is a movie that invites viewers to laugh, reflect, and reconsider the familiar fairy tales they thought they knew. The animated film represents an important case study when examining the economics of early 2000 computer animated film making produced by DreamWorks Animation. The film had an estimated production budget of around $60 million, which was considered a substantial but careful controlled investment for a major animated project at that time. Understanding how this budget was structured and how it compared to the similar film provides useful insight into the studio production strategy and the broader animation industry during that period. First, it is important to place the 60 million production budget in context. In the early 2000s, computer generated animation was still evolving technologically. Studios was invested heavily in software development, animation pipeline, and rendering infrastructures compared with traditional hand-drawn animation. CGI required powerful computing resources and specialized technical team. Despite these technological demands, DreamWorks managed to keep the cost of Shrek relatively moderate for a large-scale animated feature. A significant portion of the film budget was allocated to animation production and technical development. CGI animation required a large team of artists, modular animator, lighting specialists, and technical director. For Shrek, the film team spent several years refining character models, financial facial expression, and environmental texture. Particular attention was given to the swamp environment, which required complex stimulation for mud, water, and lighting. These elements contributed to the film's distinctive visual style while ensuring that character remain expressive and comedic. Another key area of the spending involved voice talent, character performances. The film featured well-known actors such as Mike Meyer, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz. High-profile voice actors can significantly influence a film marketing appeal and audience interest. Their performances added personality and humor to the character, which become a defining feature of the film. While voice acting typically represents a smaller percentage of the total budget compared with animation production, the involvement of recognizable actors increased the film's commercial visibility. In addition to the animation voice acting, the production budget also covers story development, design, and direction. The film was directed by Andreon Adamson and Vicky Jensen, who worked with writer and storyboard artists to refine the narrative structure. Shrek's script required careful balancing between fairy tale parody and emotional storytelling. Developing this tone involved multiple revision, visual test, and creative experimentation, all of which contributed to the overall cost of production. Marketing and distribution costs are usually separate from the core production budget, but they are also play an important role in the film's overall financial strategy. DreamWorks invested heavily in promotion, including trailers, television advertisement, merchandise, partnership, and soundtrack release. These efforts help position the film as a major family entertainment event upon its release in 2001. When comparing Shrek production budget to other animated films from the same era, its costs appear relatively efficient. For example, Toy Story 2, produced by Pixar and released in 1999, reportedly had a budget of around $90 million. Similarly, Monster increased. Release in 2001 was produced with an estimated budget of approximately $115 million. In comparison, Shark achieved a similar level of visual quality and storytelling impact at a lower cost. This efficiency demonstrated DreamWorks' ability to compete with leading animation studios while managing production expenses carefully. Another point of comparison is the film's return on investment. Although the focus here is on production cost, the movie ultimately proves extremely profitable, earning more than $480 million worldwide at the box office. This strong financial performance justified the studio investment and encouraged the development of sequel and a larger franchise. From an analytical perspective, the production budget of the Shark highlights several important factors in animated filmmaking. The cost of advanced computer animation and strategic use of well known voice actors, and the value of strong creative direction by allocating resources effectively across technical development, storytelling, and marketing. DreamWorks produced a film that was both financially efficient and culturally influential. In comparison, the $60 million budget for Shark demonstrated how careful resource management can support ambitious creative goals through a balanced investment in animation technology, talented voice actor, and narrative development. The film successfully delivered a high quality production that competed with larger budget animated feature of its time. The animated film Shark stand out not only for its memorable character and humor but also for its distinctive combination of genre and mood. At first glance, the movie appeared to be a traditional fairy tale adventure, yet as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the film's unique atmosphere that separates the film from more conventional animated stories. From a genre perspective, the Sharks primarily belong to the fantasy category. The world of the movie is filled with magical creatures, enchanted castles, dragons, and fairy tale characters. These elements place the story firmly within the fantasy tradition that audiences are familiar with from classic storybook. However, the film does not simply repeat those traditional ideas, instead, it carefully challenges them. Characters such as ogres, taking animals in storybooks figure are presented in humorous and sometimes unexpected way, turning the familiar fairy tale formula into something fresh and entertaining. Alongside fantasy, comedy plays a central role in shaping the film's identity. The humor in Shark operates on several levels. On one level, there are visual jokes and exaggerated character reaction that appeal to younger viewers. On an other level, the dialogue include clever references and satirical moments that older audience can appreciate. This layered comedic style is one of the film's defining stylistic choices. The filmmaker intentionally created humor that worked across different age groups, making the movie enjoyable for both children and adults. Another important aspect of the genre is adventure. The story follows the journey of an unlikely hero who must travel beyond his comfort zone to complete a mission. Shark quest to rescue Prince Fiona and return her to Lord Farquaad provide the narrative structure that drives the films forward. Throughout this journey, Shark is accompanied by his energetic companion Donkey, whose lively personality add both humor and emotional warmth to the story. The adventure element keep the pacing active and engaging, with each new location introducing fresh, challenging, and comedic situation. Beyond genre, the overall mood and tone of the movie are carefully balanced. The films being with a slightly ironic and playful mood, immediately signaling that it will not follow the typical fairy tale formula. Instead of opening with a grand heroic moment, the film introduced the audience to the unconventional lifestyle of the Shark, one an ogre who values solitude and peace in his swamp. This humorous and unconventional introduction establishes the film's relaxed and comedic tone. As the story progresses, the mood gradually shifts to include moments of emotional depth while comedy remains dominant. The film also explored themes of loneliness, friendship, and self acceptance. These emotional elements add warmth to the narrative and prevent the movie from feeling purely satirical. The pacing supports this balance by alternating between energetic comedic scenes and quieter character moments that allow the audience to connect with the characters on a more personal level. The atmosphere of the film also plays a crucial role in shaping its mood. The visual style contrasts the dark, moody texture of Shirk's swamp with the bright and exaggerated environment of the fairy tale kingdom ruled by Lord Farquaad. This contrast reflects the story's central theme, the difference between appearance and reality. What seems ugly or strange on the outside may actually be kind and genuine, while what appeared beautiful or royal may hide selfish intention. Stylistically, the film embraces exaggerated animation and expressive character design produced by DreamWorks Animation and directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen. The movie uses vibrant visual storytelling and dramatic character expression to reinforce its comedic tone. The animation enhances the humor by allowing character to exaggerate facial reaction and physical movement in a way that live action films can't easily achieve. The genre and the mood of the film are defined by a creative blend of fantasy, comedy, and adventure. The film atmosphere combines playful style and heartfelt emotion, while its pacing balances energetic humor with meaningful character development. Through these stylistic choices, Sher create a storytelling experience that feels both entertaining and refreshingly different from traditional fairy tale film. When audience approach the animated film, their expectations are often shaped by the film's reputation, its genre, and the studio behind it. Produced by DreamWorks Animation, the movie quickly gained attention for presenting a different kind of animated fairy tale. Before even watching the films, viewers usually appreciate a combination of humor, fantasy, adventure, and a story that challenges traditional fairy tale convention. These expectations can vary depending on the viewer's age group, familiarity with animated films, personal taste in storytelling. From the perspectives of the viewers' demographic, families and younger audience often expect Shark to deliver colorful animation, humorous character, and a simple but engaging adventure. Animated films released in the early 2000s were often marketed primarily towards children, so many parents might initially assume that the movie is designed mainly for younger viewers. The presence of fairy tale element, castles, dragons, and princesses reinforce this expectation. Children watching the film for the first time might anticipate a straightforward heroic story while the main character rescues a princess and defeats a villain. However, the older audience tend to approach the film with slightly different expectation because the film became widely known for its clever humor and style. Teenager and adult may expect a more layered experience. They often anticipate jokes that reference classic fairy tales or even broader pop culture themes. The film's reputation for playful parody suggests that it will not simply repeat traditional storybook formula. Instead, viewers may suggest that it will not simply repeat traditional storybook. Instead, many viewers expect the narrative to challenge those familiar ideas and offer a humorous twist on them. Another factor influencing audience expectation is the anticipated theme presenting in the story. Before watching the movie, viewers might predict that the film will explore themes of friendship, bravery, romance. Since they are common in fairy tale narrative, the story's central quest and argue rescuing Prince Fiona from danger appear to follow traditional heroic structure at first, and audience may initially assume that the story will end with a classic fairy tale resolution in which a prince and princess lives happily ever after. Yet many viewers may expect the film to offer something deeper than a typical fairy tale. The central character in the film is not a conventional hero. Instead of a handsome knight, he is an ogre who values solitude and prefers living alone in his swamp. This unusual protagonist signals to audience that the story may challenge stereotype about appearance and identity. As a result, viewers might anticipate theme about acceptance, individuality, and understanding people beyond surface impression. For fans of the fantasy and comedy genre, expectations often evolve around tones and storytelling style. Fantasy fan may look forward to a creative world filled with magical creatures and whimsical environment. They might accept encounter with dragon, enchanted castles, and a variety of fairy tale characters. The presence of characters such as Donkey and the villain Lord Forcute suggests that the film will include both comedic moments and dramatic conflict that drive the adventure forward. Comedy fan, on the other hand, often expect the movie really heavily on humor and witty dialogue. The film's reputation for playful sarcasm and clever storytelling leads many viewers to anticipate frequent jokes and humorous situations. The wise performances from actors like Mike Meyer, Adam Roth, and Cameron Diaz, they also shape expectation. Audience familiar with these performers may expect livingly energetic character and comedic timing that enhances the film's entertainment value. Another expectation that audience often bring to this film involve the visual style and animation quality. During the early 2000s, computer generated animations were becoming more advanced, and viewers were increasingly interested in film that showcased his evolving technology. Because Shrek was released during this transitional period in animation history, many viewers may expect vibrant environment, expressive character animation, and imaginative creature design. The contrast between the moody swamp environment and the bright fairy tale kingdom add to the anticipation of a visually engaging experience. Ultimately, audience expectations for the film are shaped by a blend of factors: the reputation of animated fantasy film, the film's comedic tone, and the unusual concept of an Grey as the main hero. Viewers may approach the movie expecting a highlighted adventure, humorous dialogue, and a familiar fairy tale element. At the same time, they often anticipate clever twists that challenge those traditions. Because of this expectation, shares become more than other animated fairy tale. It promises a playful and imaginative story that appeal to the multiple generation. By becoming fantasy adventure with steer and heartfelt theme, the films invite audience to enjoy a familiar genre while also experiences it from a refreshingly different perspective. The animated film was designed to appeal to a wide and diverse audience. Unlike many animated movies that focus mainly on younger viewers, Shark successfully target multiple age groups by becoming humor, fantasy, adventure, and meaningful themes. Produced by DreamWorks Animation, the film carefully balances its storytelling style so that the children, teenager, and the adult can all enjoy the experience in different way. Understanding the target audience involve looking at the three main factors: age group, viewers interest, and genre preferences. First, the primary age group for the film includes children and family audience. The movie contains colorful animation, imaginative fantasy setting, and memorable character that naturally attract younger viewers. Children often enjoy animated film because they feature exaggerated expression, humorous situation, and visually engaging environment. In this film, characters such as Donkey provide energetic comedy that younger viewers can easily appreciate. Donkey's lively personality, constant talking, and playful reactions adds a sense of fun that keep children entertained throughout the story. At the same time, the movie avoid limited itself to only a young audience. Teenager and adult are also the part of the intended target demographic. One of the reasons for this broader appeal is the film use of layer humor. While children may laugh at the physical comedy and visual joke, older viewers can recognize the stares of traditional fairy tale. The movie cleverly plays with classic storybook expectation, presenting a hero who does not fit the typical mold. Instead of a charming prince, the central character is Shrek, an ogre who prefer living alone in his swamp. This unconventional protagonist make the story feel fresh and relatable for older audience who enjoy stories that challenge familiar ideas. Another important element in identify the target audience is viewers' interest. People who enjoy fantasy stories are likely to be drawn to Shrek because the film takes place in a magical world filled with fairy tale characters and adventurous situations. Story features castle, dragons, enchanted forest, and magical creatures, all of which contribute to the fantasy atmosphere. The quest to rescue Princess Fiona from a dragon guarded castle provide the classic adventure structure that fans of fantasy storytelling often enjoy. However, the movie also appeals to the viewer who appreciate comedy and light-hearted storytelling. Much of the film's charms come from its playful tone and humorous dialogue. Characters frequently engage in witty conversation, exaggerated reaction, and comedic misunderstanding. This mistake the film attractive to the audience who enjoy entertainment that is both funny and relaxing. The villain Lord Farquaad is portrayed in a numerous and exaggerated way, adding another layer of comedy to the narrative. The genre preferences of the audience also play a key role in determining who the movie is made for. Fans of animated films often appreciate the creativity and visual imagination that animation allows. The film used computer generated animation to create expressive character and detailed environment, making the story visually engaging. Viewers who enjoy animated storytelling will likely appreciate the film's vibrant design and playful style. In addition, fans of adventure stories may find the movies particularly appealing. The plot allows a journey in which Shark must travel beyond his home to complete a mission. Along the way, he faces challenges, meets new characters, and gradually learns important lessons about friendship and acceptance. This structure is familiar to many adventure narratives, making the film easy for audience to follow and enjoy. Another group within the target audience include people who appreciate stories with meaningful themes. Beneath its comedic surface, the shark explore ideas about self-acceptance and understanding others beyond their appearance. The relationship that developed between the film and the Prince Fiona show that the true connection comes from honesty and empathy rather than traditional expectation. These themes resonate with older viewers who look for emotional depth. In addition to entertainment, the film's voice cast also contribute to its appeal for a broad audience. Performances by actors such as Mike Meyer, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz brings personality and humor to the character. Adults who recognize these performances may feel an additional connection to the films, while younger viewers simply enjoy the lively character voices and comedic delivery. In conclusion, the target audience for Shark is intentionally broad. The film is suitable for children who enjoy animated adventure, teenagers who appreciate humorous storytelling, and adults who enjoy clever, steer, and meaningful theme. By blending fantasy, comedy, and heartfelt felt moment, the movie creates an experience that can be enjoyed by viewers with different interests and genre preferences. This wide appeal is one of the key reasons why the Shark remain a beloved animated films for audience of many generations. The animated film Shark offers viewers a rich and engaging emotional experience that blend humor, warmth, and meaningful reflection. At first glance, the movie appeared to promise a light-hearted and entertaining adventure, but as the story unfolds, it reveals deeper emotional layer through its tone, themes, and character relationship. The films create an experience that allow audience to laugh and emphasize with the character and reflect an important idea about identity and acceptance. One of the most noticeable aspects of the emotional experience is the overall mood of the film. From the beginning, the atmosphere is playful and humorous. The movie introduced the audience to Shug and Orge, who enjoy the peace and quiet of his home. Instead of presenting him as a frightening monster, the film portrays him as a misunderstood character with a sarcastic sense of humor. This introduction immediately set our tone that is both comedic and slightly ironic, encouraging viewer to approach the story with a sense of curiosity and amusement. As the narrative progresses, the mood gradually expands beyond simple comedy. The story introduces emotional moments that reveal shock, loneliness, and desire for acceptance. Although he claimed to prefer living alone, the film subtitles show that he has been judged and rejected by others because of his appearance. This emotional layer adds depth to the story and invites the audience to feel sympathy for the character. Instead of viewing Chuck as the typical hero, viewers being to see him as someone who struggles with feelings that many people can understand. Another important part of the emotional experience involves the themes explored throughout the film. One of the central theme is the idea that true worth can't be judged by outward appearance. The relationship between Shirk and Princess Fiona gradually reveals that individuals often hide their true selves out of fear of being rejected. As the character grow closer during their journey, they begin to recognize that honesty and acceptance are more important than meeting society expectations. The friendship between Shirk and Donkey also contributes significantly to the emotional tone of the film. Donkey's cheerful and persistent personality brings energy and humor to the story, but his loyalty and optimism also highlight the importance of companionship. Through their interaction, the film shows that genuine friendship can break through emotional barrier and help people open up to others. This dynamic create many comedic moments while also reinforcing the film message about connection and understanding. Another emotional elements come from the contrast between the main character and the film antagonist, Lord Farquaad. While Farquaad is portrayed as ambitious and obsessed with appearance, Shark represent authenticity and honesty. This contrast reinforces the film's theme and shape the emotional response of the audience. Viewers are encouraged to root for the character who embrace their true selves rather than those who focus on superficial status or image. The intended emotional impact of the film is to leave audience feeling both entertained and uplifted. The comedic dialogue and playful situation ensure that viewer experience frequent moment of laughter. At the same time, the story and the emotional journey of the character encourages reflection on ideas such as self-confidence, empathy, and acceptance. By combining humor with meaningful storytelling, the film manages to create a balanced emotional tone that feels satisfying without being overly sentimental. Another aspect of the emotional experience is the film's sense of optimism. Even though the character face challenge and misunderstanding, the story ultimately emphasizes growth and understanding. As a shark being to accept himself and trust others, the audience witnesses a transformation that feel both believable and inspiring. This progression helps viewers connect emotionally with the story, making the ending feel rewarding and heartfelt. The emotional experience is also enhanced by the film expressive animation and lively voice performances produced by DreamWorks Animation. The movie uses detailed facial expression and animated gesture to communicate feeling that words alone can't convey. The voice acting from perfumes such as Mike Meyer, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz further strengthen the emotional connection between the audience and the character. The emotional experience promised by Shark is both entertaining and meaningful. The film being with a humorous and playful mood but gradually developed deeper emotional themes related to identity, friendship, and acceptance. By combining comedy with heartfelt storytelling, the movie creates an emotional journey that encourages audience to laugh, reflect, and ultimately feel uplifted. This blend of humor and sincerity is one of the reasons why Shark continued to resonate with viewers long after its release. The animated film Shark presents a story that goes beyond its humorous surface and fairy tale setting. At its core, the film explores ideas about identity, acceptance, and the difference between outward appearance and the inner world, while the narrative follows the journey of an or on a quest. The deeper concept of the story reflects a broader message about how individuals perceive themselves and others within society. One of the most important themes in the movie is the challenge of overcoming stereotype. The central character Shaq live in a world where people assume that auras are frightening and undesirable. Because of these expectations, Shaq has built emotional wall around himself. He isolates himself from others and convinces himself that solitude is the safest way to live. In this sense, the story being with a character who has internalized the judgment of the outside world. The narrative gradually examines how such assumptions shape personal identity and influence how individuals behave toward one another. As the story progresses, the concept of identity and self-acceptance become increasingly significant. Shark's journey is not a physical adventure but also an emotional transformation. His interaction with other characters challenge his belief that he must remain isolated in order to protect himself. Through unexpected friendship and experience, he being to see that connection with others can be meaningful rather than threatening. This shift reflects a central idea of the theme. People often construct defensive identity to avoid rejection, yet genuine relationship require vulnerability and openness. The theme of authenticity is also strongly connected to the characters of the Princess Fiona. Fiona's story reflects the tension between personal growth and social expectation. She initially appeared to represent the traditional image of a fairy tale princess, yet her character contained complexity that challenged that role. Through her experience with Shark, she confronted the idea that identity can't be defined solely by external appearance or by rules imposed by others. This aspect of the narrative reinforces the message that authenticity is more valuable than conformity. Another important element of the film core idea involved the reimaging of the classic fairy tale concept. Traditional fairy tale often present clear distinction between heroes and the villain, beauty with ugliness, gore, good and evil. In contrast, Shark deliberately blurred these boundaries. Character who might appear intimidating or unconventional turn out to possess kindness and sincerity, while figure who appear noble may reveal arrogance or self. Antagonist Lord Farquaad represent an exaggerated version of social obsession with perfection and status. He focuses on appearance, highlight the contrast between superficial ideals and genuine character. This reinterpretations of a fairy tale tradition form an essential part of the story's concept rather than rejecting the genre entirely. The film uses familiar elements such as castles, magical creatures, and heroic quest and transform them into tools for humor and reflection. By presenting these conventions in an unexpected way, the narrative encourages audience to reconsider the assumption often associated with traditional stories. The journey to rescue a princess, for example, become less about fulfilling a heroic duty and more about discovering mutual understanding between characters. The film also explored the importance of friendship and emotional connection. The relationship between Shark and Donkey serve as a catalyst for much of the protagonist's personal growth. Donkey's persistence, optimism, and willingness to see the good in others challenge Shark's belief that isolation is necessary. Through their interaction, the story demonstrates how companionship can encourage individuals to question their fears and assumptions. Friendship, in this sense, become a transformation creative force that allow the character to move beyond the limitation they have placed on themselves. Another theme embedded in the film's core idea is the search for belonging. Many characters within the story exist on the margin of society because they are considered unusual and undesirable. The narrative suggests that their characters share a more common desire to be expected for who they truly are. This collective appearance reinforces the message that community should value diversity rather than conformity. By bringing together characters who initially feel excluded, the stories illustrate how acceptance can create a sense of belonging and mutual respect. The film's core message also emphasizes the difference between external beauty and inner character. Society often promotes narrow standards of attractiveness and success, encouraging individuals to pursue ideas that may not reflect their true self. Sharks challenges these assumptions by showing that kindness, honesty, and courage are more meaningful qualities than physical perfection. Through their evolving relationship between Shrek and Fiona, the story demonstrates that genuine affection emerges from understanding and empathy rather than superficial attraction. Produced by DreamWorks Animation and directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, the film combines humor and fantasy with these deeper ideas. The playful tone allows the narrative to address complex themes without being overly serious or moralistic. Instead of presenting its message through direct lesson, the film invites viewers to reflect on the character experience and draw their own conclusion. In conclusion, the core idea of the Shark centers on redefining traditional concept of identity, beauty, and heroism through its exploration of self-acceptance, authenticity, friendship, and the belonging. The film encourages audience to look beyond appearance and recognize the value of individuality by transforming familiar fairy tale elements into a story about empathy and understanding. Shark deliver a message that resonates with viewers of many ages. The films remind us that true connection and happiness come not from meeting society expectation but from embracing who we are and appreciating the uniqueness of others. The animated film Shark revolve around a central conflict that extends beyond simple adventure or external struggle. At its heart, the story presents a deeper tension between social expectation and personal identity rather than focusing only on a physical challenge. The films build its narrative through around emotional and moral dilemma that affect how characters see themselves and interact with others. This layer conflict creates a story that is both humorous and reflecting, encouraging audience to think about the nature of the acceptance, belonging, and authenticity. One of the most important aspects of the character conflict involves the moral dilemma of identity versus perception. The protagonist Shark exists in a world where people judge him primarily by his appearance. Society has already decided what an orc represents something frightening, undesirable, and unworthy of connection. This external judgment creates a tension between how Shark truly feels and how he believes he must behave to survive in that environment. Over time, he adopts the rule that others expect of him, even though it prevents him from forming meaningful relationship. The conflict therefore being internally as the character struggle with the consequence of living according to assumption rather than genuine self-expression. Another layer of the tension rises from the challenge of emotional vulnerability. Individuals who experience repeated rejection often build protective barriers to avoid further disappointment. In this context, the central conflict reflects the difficulty of opening oneness to trust and companionship. Shirk initially valued independence or solitude, believing that isolation protects him from judgment. However, this defensive approach also limits his ability to experience friendship and emotional connection. The narrative tension emerges from the contrast between the comfort of isolation and possibility of the connection that lies beyond it. The story also introduced the moral challenge of authenticity versus social expectation. Character with the narrative frequently face situations in which they must decide whether to conform to established rule or express their true self. One character who represents this struggle is Princess Fiona. Fiona identity reflects the pressure of living according to traditional ideals of beauty, loyalty, and behavior. Her character embodies the tension between fulfilling those expectations and acknowledging her own individuality. The conflicts around authenticity highlight a broader theme of the film. Society often encourages people to present a version of themselves that fits certain standards, even what that version does not reflect their real identity. Another dimension of the central conflict appears in the contrast between superficial values and the genuine character. The antagonist Lord Farquaad symbolized the pursuit of control, status, and outward perfection. His perspective represents a rigid social system that prioritizes appearance, order, and authority, say above empathy or understanding. This worldview creates tension with character who value sincerity and individuality. The conflict between those opposing perspectives reflects a broader philosophical question: should society judge individual by external qualities, or should it value authenticity and companion instead? The film also explored the challenge of overcoming prejudice. Prejudice often emerges from fear of the unfamiliar or from long standing stereotypes that shape collective thinking. In the word of the story, certain group of characters are automatically labeled as undesirable or dangerous. These labels reinforce social diversion and prevent meaningful interaction between different individuals. The central conflict therefore reflects the broader human experience of confronting biases and questioning inherited belief about others. Another key source of tension comes from the struggle for belonging. Many characters in the narrative experience feeling of exclusion because they do not fit the dominant image of what society considers acceptable or admirable. This creates an environment in which individuals must choose between hiding their uniqueness or embracing it despite potential rejection. The desire for belonging becomes a powerful emotional force that shapes the design and motivation of several characters. In this way, the conflict highlights the universal human need for community and recognition. The dynamic between Shark and Donkey introduces another dimension to the central tension. Donkey openness and enthusiasm contrast sharply with the Shark guarded personality. This relationship illustrates the challenge of accepting companionship when one has become accustomed to solitude. The tension between escapism and trust reflects a broader emotional conflict, the fear that closeness may lead to rejection, balance against the possibility that friendship can bring understanding and joy. From a thematic perspective, the central conflict of the film can be understood as a struggle between isolation and connection. Isolation offers safety from judgment but also leads to loneliness and misunderstanding. Connection, on the other hand, requires vulnerability and the willingness to challenge preconceived notions. The character experience illustrates how these opposing forces shape personal growth and transformation. The film's creative vision, developed by DreamWorks Animation and guided by director Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, uses humor and fantasy to present these complex ideas in an accessible way by framing the central conflict within a playful fairy tale setting. The story invites viewers to reflect on deeper moral questions without losing the sense of entertainment and charm that define the movie. Ultimately, the central conflict in Shrek is not only simply about overcoming obstacles in our physical life, instead it revolves around confronting the assumptions that shape identity and relationship. Through moral dilemma involving authenticity, justice, and vulnerability and belonging, the film explored the challenge of living honestly in a world that often values appearance over truth. The tension between societal assumption and personal authenticity form the emotional and philosophical foundation of the story, giving the film its enduring relevance and depth. The animated fantasy comedy Shark explore a variety of meaningful themes beneath its humorous and playful storytelling. While the film is widely known for its comedy and entertaining character, it also raises thoughtful questions about identity, acceptance, and societal expectation. Through its character and narrative direction, the movie invites viewers to reflect on ethical questions, emotional development, and culture ideas about beauty, belonging, and individuality. One of the most significant themes explored in the film is the ethical question of judging others based on appearance. In many traditional fairy tales, physical beauty is often associated with goodness, while unusual or frightening appearance are connected with evil. Shark challenges this long-standing idea by presenting a main character who does not fit the traditional image of a hero. Shark is an ogre who lives alone because society assumes that someone who looks like he must be dangerous or unpleasant. This situation raises an important ethical question for the audience. Should people be evaluated based on the outward appearance, or should their character and action define who they truly are? Another central theme involves self acceptance and personal identity. Throughout the narrative, characters struggle with how they see themselves and how they believe others see them. Shirk initially accepts the negative stereotype that others place on him and choose isolation as a way to protect himself from rejection. His emotional arc gradually moves from defensive solitude toward openness and connection. This transformation reflects a deeper theme about the importance of understanding and accepting one's own identity instead of allowing society expectation to determine self-worth. The theme of authenticity versus social expectation is also explored through the character of the Princess Fiona. Fiona represents the tension between the traditional image of the fairy tale princess and her more complex personal identity. She faces the challenge of reconciling who she is with who society expects her to be. This internal conflict highlights the border culture pressure placed on individuals to meet certain ideals, particularly ideals connected with beauty, status, or perfection. The film encourages viewers to question whether these expectations are realistic or even meaningful. Another important theme is friendship and emotional connection. The relationship between Shark and Donkey illustrates how companionship can change a person's outlook on life. Donkey's energetic personality and constant optimism demonstrate that trust and loyalty can develop even between individuals who initially appear very different from one another. This emotional arc emphasizes the idea that relationship can help people overcome fear and insecurity. The film also examines power and social hierarchy through the presence of Lord Farquaad. Farquaad represents a character who value control, status, and appearance above empathy and authenticity. Her desire to create a perfectly adhered order society reflects a broader cultural issue. The tendency for system of power to prioritize conformity over individuality. Through this contrast, the movie raises question about leadership and authority. It suggests that true leadership should involve understanding in fairness other than rigid enforcement of superficial ideals. Another theme explored in the film relate to the search for belonging. Many characters in the story experience feeling of exclusion because they do not fit within the dominant expectation of society. Fairy tale creatures, for example, are treated as outsiders simply because they are unusual or different. This shared experience of marginalization reflects a broader culture topic about how societies often respond to diversity. The narrative suggests that communities become stronger when they embrace difference rather than rejecting it. The film also engages with cultural perception of beauty and perfection. Traditional fairy tale frequently present beauty as an unquestioned ideal, associated it with virtue and success. Shirk challenges this idea by demonstrating that genuine kindness and emotional honesty matter more than outward perfection. Through the evolving relationship between Shirk and Fiona, the story emphasizes that love and respect grow from mutual understanding rather than physical appearance. Additionally, the movie explored the balance between independence and connection. Shirk values his independence and initial belief that relying on others will only lead to disappointment. However, his experience gradually revealed that independence does not have to mean isolation. Instead, it is possible to maintain individuality while also forming meaningful relationships. This theme resonates with the audience because it reflects a common human challenge. Finding the balance between protecting oneself and opening up to others. From a culture perspective, Shrek also functions as a parody of classic fairy tale. Produced by DreamWorks Animation and directed by Andrew Dempsey and Vicky Jensen, the film intentionally reimages the familiar structure of traditional fairy tale story. Instead of presenting a perfect prince rescuing a helpless princess, The movie introduced characters who are flawed, humorous, and relatable. This stylistic choice reflects a broader culture shift in storytelling, where audiences increasingly appreciate narrative that question traditional assumptions and celebrate individuality. Shrek explores a wide range of themes that extend fear beyond its comedic surface through ethical questions about appearance and judgment, emotional arc involving self-acceptance and friendship, the culture topic related to power, beauty, and belonging. The film encourages audience to reconsider familiar ideas about heroism and identity. By blending humor with meaningful reflection, the story invites viewers to think more deeply about how society defines value and how individuals can define confidence in their authentic selves. These themes contribute to the lasting appeal of Shrek and help explain why it is continue to resonate with audience around the world. The animated fantasy comedy Shrek create a powerful emotional connection with viewers by blending humor's relatable themes and meaningful character development. While the film is widely recognized for its playful tone and comedic moment, it also offers a deeper emotional experience that resonates with audience of many ages. Through its smooth thematic depth and carefully crafted viewers experience, the story invites viewers to emphasize with its character and reflect on universal human feelings such as loneliness, acceptance, and belonging. One of the primary ways the films build emotional connection is through its overall mood at the beginning. The atmosphere is bright, humorous, and slightly ironic. The story introduces audience to Shirk and ogre who lives peacefully in isolation and seem content with his solitary lifestyle. The comedic tone allows viewers to relax and enjoy the story without feeling overwhelmed by seriousness. However, beneath the humor lies a subtitle emotional layer. As the story unfolds, the audience being to understand that Shirk's desire for isolation is not simply a personal preference. It is partially a response to being rejected and misunderstood by others. This gradual revelation helps viewers develop empathy for the character. Many people have experienced moments when they felt different from others or judged unfairly. By presenting Shirk as a character who struggles with these feelings, the film creates a connection that goes beyond simple entertainment. The mood therefore evolved from pure comedy into something more reflecting and emotionally meaningful. Another important element that strengthens the emotional connection is the film's themes of self acceptance and authenticity. The narrative encourages viewers to consider how society often places expectation on individual based on appearance or social role. Through Shark's journey, audience see how individual it can be to overcome the labels that others impose. His emotional arc moved from defensive isolation toward greater confidence and openness. Watching these transformations allow viewers to experience a sense of hope and encouragement, particularly for those who may have faced similar challenges in their own lives. The relationship between Shark and Donkey play a crucial role in shaping the conventional experience of the film. Donkey's cheerful personality and constant optimism contrast with Shark's guided attitude. At first, their interactions are primarily comedic, but as their friendship develops, the relationship reveals deeper emotional significance. Donkey represents unconditional acceptance. He does not judge Shrunk for his appearance or reputation. This acceptance gradually encourages Shrunk to reconsider his belief that isolation is the only safe option for viewers. This dynamic highlight the importance of the sportive friendship and remind them that meaningful relationship can help people grow emotionally. The film also creates emotional resonance through the character of the Princess Fiona. Fiona's journey involves confronting the expectation placed upon her and discovering the courage to embrace her authentic self. Her story reflects a universal struggle between conforming to social ideals and accepting one's true identity. This theme is particularly powerful because it applies to many aspects of life, from personal appearance to social rules and cultural acceptation expectation. By witnessing Fiona's emotional development, viewers are encouraged to reflect on their own experience with identity and self except confidence. Another factor that strengthens the emotional connection is the film's contrast between sincerity and superficiality. The antagonist, Lord Farquaad, represents a character who values status, power, and appearance above genuine human quality. His behavior highlights the emptiness of a worldview that focuses only on outward perfection. By comparing Farquaad's rigid ideas with authenticity of the main character, the film encourages viewer to appreciate honest kindness and empathy. This contrast reinforces the emotional message that true fulfillment comes from embracing individuality rather than striving for artificial perfection. The viewer experience is also enhanced by the film's expressive animation, encouraging voice performances. Produced by DreamWorks Animation and directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, the movie uses detailed facial expression and body language to communicate subtitle emotion. Animation allow characters to exaggerate their reaction in ways that make their feelings clear and relatable. At the same time, the voice performances of actors such as Mike Meyer, Adam Murray, and Cameron Diaz add personality and warmth to the character, making them feel alive and emotionally authentic. The film also balances the humor and emotion carefully. The frequent comedic moments ensure that the story never becomes overly heavy or dramatic. Instead, laughter serves as a bridge that keep the audience engaged while deeper themes unfold gradually. These balances allow viewer to enjoy the story on multiple levels. Some may simply appreciate the humor and adventure, while others may connect more strongly with the emotional theme. Ultimately, the emotional connection created by Shark comes from its ability to combine entertainment with sincerity. The film encourages viewers to laugh, but it also invites them to reflect on their own experience with acceptance, friendship, and identity. By presenting characters with struggle with universal emotion, the story becomes relatable to audience from different backgrounds and age group. The emotional power of the film lies in its thoughtful combination of mood, themes, and storytelling style. The film being as a playful fairy tale parody but gradually reveals deeper message about authenticity, belonging, and empathy. Through the emotional story of the Shug, Fiona, and their companion, viewers are reminded that the true happiness comes from embracing one's unique identity and forming genuine connection with others. This emotional depth is one of the key reasons why the film continued to resonate with audience long after its original release. The animated film presents a memorable group of characters whose personalities and roles drive the emotional and thematic depth of the story. Rather than relying on simple fairy tale stereotypes, film construct characters that feel humorous, relatable, and surprisingly complex. From a reviewer's perspective, the success of the story depends largely on how these personalities interact with one another. Each major character represents a familiar archetype but is written with personality traits that challenge traditional expectation. At the center of the story is Shuk, the main character and the emotional core of the narrative. As a character archetype, the Shuk can be described as the reluctant hero, unlike typical fantasy protagonists who actively seek adventure or glory. Shuk prefer isolation and a quiet life away from society. His personality traits include scarsome, stubborn independence, and emotional guardiness. He often presents himself as intimidating and unique interested in relationship, but this behavior is largely defensive. Beneath his rough exteriors lies a thoughtful and empathetic personality. From a reviewer's viewpoint, Shirk works effectively at a protagonist because his struggle is both external and internal. While he navigates the challenge placed before him, he is also learning to overcome the assumption others have placed on him. This internal growth gives the characters emotional depth and allow the audience to relate to him despite his unusual appearance. Another important figure is Donkey, who fits the classic comic sidekick archetype. However, Donkey is not simply a character designed to generate laughter. His personality traits include boundless enthusiasm, optimism, curiosity, and loyalty. Donkey talks constantly and approaches the world with a sense of excitement that contrasts sharply with Shark's reserved attitude. From a reviewer perspective, Donkey plays a critical role in the narrative because he challenges Shark's isolation. His willingness to accept Shark without judgment creates an emotional bridge between the protagonist and the rest of the world. While his humorous dialogue provides comedic relief, his persistence and loyalty also demonstrate the value of the genuine friendship. The dynamic between Shark and the donkey form one of the film's strongest elements, blending humor with emotional sincerity. Princess Fiona represents another important character archetype. Initially appearing as the traditional fairy tale princess at first glance, she seems to embody the typical role associated with loyal character in fantasy stories, graceful, noble, and waiting to be rescued. However, her personality quickly reveals a more complex identity. Fiona is intelligent, capable, determined, and often surprisingly practical. These personality traits challenge the passive princess stereotype commonly found in older fairy tales. From a reviewer standpoint, Fiona's character is specifically effective because she represents the tension between the social expectation and personal authenticity. Her emotional journey reflects the pressure of maintaining an ideal image while struggling with deeper personal trait. This internal conflict allows the character to grow over time and contribute significantly to the story's theme of self-acceptance and honesty. In contrast to the protagonist, Lord Farquaad represents the story's primarily antagonist and embodies a more exaggerated villain archetype. His defining personality include arrogance, vanity, and an obsession with control and perfection. Farquaad behavior reflects a rigid worldview in which status and appearance matter more than empathy or authenticity. From a reviewer's perspective, the character functions symbolically as much as narratively. He represents the social system that judges individuals based on superficial quality rather than genuine character. While he is portrayed in a humorous and exaggerated way, his action creates the tension that pushes the story forward. Farquaad's personality contrasts sharply with the protagonist, highlighting the film's message that kindness and honesty are more valuable than outward perfection. One of the most interesting aspects of the character structure in the film is how these personalities interact to create emotional development. Sure guided independence is challenged by Donkey's openness and Fiona's complexity. Each character influences the other in subtitle way, encourages personal growth and greater self-understanding. From a reviewer's viewpoint, this network of relationship allow the narrator to explore themes such as acceptance, friendship, and authenticity without feeling forced or overly moralistic. Another strength of the film's character writing is the balance between humor and sincerity. The characters frequently engage in playful dialogue and comedic situations, yet their emotional motivation remain believable. This balance ensures that viewers remain entertained while still connecting with the deeper theme of the story. The personalities feel distinctive and memorable, making each interaction meaningful within the broader narrative. Overall, the character design in Shark demonstrates how animated storytelling can combine archetypal role with modern personality trait. The reluctant hero, the loyal companion, the unconventional princess, and exaggerated winner all contribute to the narrative that feel both familiar and refreshing. Through their personalities and emotional journey, the director transform a simple fairy tale framework into a story about identity, acceptance, and the importance of genuine connection. The animated film Shug relies heavily on voice performances to bring its character to the life, and the emotional success of the story is closely tied to the actors behind these voices. In animated storytelling, actors can't rely on facial expression or physical movement in the traditional sense. Instead, they must communicate personality, emotion, and energy entirely through vocal delivery. In this film, the cast manages to create character that feel expressive, humorous, and emotionally genuine, making the performance one of the movie's strongest elements. At the center of the film is the performance of the Mike Meyer as Shrek. His portrayal of the character provides the emotional foundation for the entire story. Meyer used a distinctive Scottish accent and carefully balanced vocal style that combines calm, irritation, and unexpected warmth. At first, his delivery emphasized Shrek's defensive personality. The tone is often gruff and dismissive, reflecting a character who has learned to keep others at a distance. However, as the story progresses, Meyer gradually introduces softer emotional notes into the performances. Moments of vulnerability are expressed through subtitle shift in tone and pacing, allow the audience to see the loneliness and frustration beneath Shirk's tough exchanges. From a reviewer's perspective, this vocal performances is remarkably effective because it transforms what could have been a purely comedy character into someone emotionally relatable. Equally memorable is the performance of the Addis Murphy as Donkey. Murphy brings an extraordinary level of energy and comedic timing to the role, making Donkey one of the most recognizable characters in animated film history. His performance is lively, expressive, and filled with rapid fire dialogue that keep the scene entertaining and dynamic. Donkey's personality is built in enthusiasm and constant curiosity, and Morphe captured these straight through an energetic vocal rhythm that rarely slow down. However, what makes the performance especially impressive in its emotional sincerity beneath the humor. Morphe gives Donkey a sense of genuine loyalty and kindness. His voice communicates a character who truly loves friendship and communication. This emotional honesty prevents the character from feeling like a simple comedic device and instead turn him into an essential part of the story's emotional core. Another strong performances come from Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona. Diaz approaches the role with a blend of elegance, humor, and emotional note. At first, her voice carries the polished tone expected from a traditional fairy tale princess. However, as Fiona personality unfolds, Diaz introduces playful confidence and independence into the performances. These shifts reflect the character deeper complexity and help break away from the typical princess stereotype. From an emotional perspective, Diaz gives Fiona a sense of authenticity. Her voice communicates both strength and vulnerability, allowing the audience to understand the internal struggle that shaped the character. This layered portrait contributes to the film's theme about identity and self-acceptance. The supporting cast also contributes significantly to the overall atmosphere of the film. One notable performance is provided by John Lithgow as Lord Farquaad. Lithgow's vocal delivery is exaggerated and theatrical, which suit the character's arrogant and authoritarian personality. Her performance emphasized the villain's obsession with control and perfection, creating a clear contrast with sincerity of the main character. From a reviewer standpoint, Lithgow portray work effectively because it embraces the exaggerated tone of fairy tale villains while still maintaining comedic flair. Perhaps the most important aspect of the acting in Shrek is the chemistry between the lead voices. The interaction between Mike Meyer and Adam Murphy form the emotional backbone of the film. Their contrasting vocal style, Meyer restrained sarcasm and Murphy energetic enthusiasm, create a natural comedic rhythm. Scenes between Shrek and Donkey feel spontaneous and lively, almost as though the characters are reacting genuinely to one another. This chemistry strengthens the sense of friendship that develop throughout the story and keep the audience invested in their journey. Similarly, the chemistry between Mike Meyer and Diaz help create a believable emotional connection between Shark and Fiona. Their dialogue gradually shifts from awkward tension to warmth and mutual understanding. The actors achieve this progression through subtitle changes in tone, pacing, and emotional expression. As a result, the relationship feel organic rather than forced, allowing viewers to emotionally engage with the characters. From a reviewer's perspective, the voice performances in Shrek demonstrate how powerful vocal acting can be in animation. Each performance performer bring a distinct personality to their role while also contributing to the emotional harmony of the ensemble. The humor, sincerity, and the chemistry among the cast members transform animated figure into characters that feel alive and emotionally meaningful. Ultimately, the success of the show's storytelling is inseparable from the strength of these performances, which remain one of the film's most enduring achievement. The animated film Shark demonstrated an interesting balance between fantasy storytelling and emotional realism. Although the world of the film is filled with magical creature, fairy tale references, and exaggerated humor, the characters themselves are written with surprising depth. This depth allows the audience to connect with them in a meaningful way, even within a highly imaginative sense setting. From a reviewer perspective, the realism in the film does not come from realistic environment or event, but from the emotional authenticity of the character and their gradual development over time. One of the most notable aspects of the realism in the film is the character development of its central figure Shug. Instead of presenting a simple heroic figure, the character is shaped by experience that influence his behavior and worldview. His personality reflects someone who has spent a long time being misunderstood and judged by others. As a result, his attitude often appears defensive and distant. This emotional barrier makes his character feel believable because it mirrors a real human reaction to rejection or isolation. Many viewers recognize the feeling of protecting themselves emotionally after being judged unfairly. The film uses this trait not as a weakness but as a starting point for growth, allowing the character emotional journey to feel gradual and sincere. Another important example of the character depth appeared in the portrayal of the Princess Fiona. Rather than functioning as a simple romantic figure, Fiona demonstrates complexity through her personality and emotional responses. She carries a sense of responsibility tied to social expectation while also showing independence and self-awareness. This balance gives her character a level of realism rarely found in traditional fairy tale princess role. From a reviewer viewpoint, the believability of the Fiona character comes from the way she navigates conflicting aspects of her identity. Her personality reflects someone who is aware of societal ideas but is also searching for a more authentic understanding of herself. The film also achieves realism through the dynamic personality of the donkey. At first glance, donkey may appear to exist mainly for comedic effect. However, his behavior reveals deeper emotional traits that contribute to the story's authenticity. Donkey is openly expressive, eager to connect with others, and unafraid of showing vulnerability. In many ways, he represents the emotional openness that contrasts with guarded nature. This contrast highlights different approach to dealing with loneliness and friendship. The realism of Donkey character lies in his unwavering belief in the value of companionship. Her persistence reflects a kind of optimism that many people recognize and create supportive friendship. Believability in the film is also reinforced through the contrast between genuine emotional character and exaggerated personality such as Lord Farquaad. Farquaad represents a more rigid and superficial perspective, focusing heavily on order, appearance, and control. While his character is intentionally exaggerated, his exaggeration serves as a narrative purpose. It highlights the difference between the character who value authenticity and those who prioritize external image. From a reviewer standpoint, this contrast allows the more emotionally complex character to stand out even more clearly. This reaction, insecurities, and growth appear realistic when placed against a character defined primarily by rigid ideals. Another important element contributed to realism is the emotional range displayed by the character. The film does not limit its personality to a single emotional tone. Instead, they move naturally between humor, frustration, vulnerability, and confidence. This range makes them feel multidimensional. Shrek, for example, may express irritation, sarcasm in one moment, and reveal unexpected kindness or interception in another. Such shift mirror the emotional complexity of the real people who rarely behave in completely predictable way. The emotional range also appear in the interaction between the character. Conservation often shifts from comedic banter to moment of sincerity without feeling forced. This fluid moment between tone contribute to the believability of the relationship. The viewer sees that the characters are not simply delivering scripted jokes but responded to one another in way that feels spontaneous and genuine. The expressive animation produced by the DreamWorks Animation further support the this realism by allowing subtitle, facial expression, and body language to reinforce the emotional notes. From a broader perspective, the depth of the character and reflect the creative direction of the filmmakers such as Andrew Dempson and Vicky Jensen. This approach demonstrates that animated character can carry emotional complexity comparable to those in live and action film. Instead of relying solely on spectacular humor, the film invests time in exploring the internal motivation of its character. This emphasis on personality development gives the narrative lasting emotional resonance. Ultimately, the realism and the character depth in the film emerges from its focus on emotional truth rather than physical realism. The character experience insecurity, friendship, self-discovery, and acceptance in way that feel authentic to the viewer. Even within a whimsical fairy tale world, these emotional experiences remain recognizable and relatable. This combination of imaginative storytelling with believable emotional behavior allowed the film to connect with the audience on a deeper level, demonstrated that animated character can feel just as real and complex as those in any other form of storytelling. The animated feature Shark was produced with an estimated production budget of approximately $60 million, a figure that places it with the mid to high range for computer animated film at the beginning of the 2000s. At that time, the animation industry was undergoing a major technological transition as studios increasingly shifting from traditional high hand drawn technique to fully computer generated imagery. Because of this technological evaluation, production budget for animated film often reflect the cost of developing advanced animation pipeline, rendering system, and large creative team. From an analytical standpoint, the $60 million investment represents a strategic allocation of resources by DreamWorks Animation to compete directly with other major animation studios while maintaining financial efficiency. A significant portion of the film budget was dedicated to computer animation development and visual production. Created a fully computer generated animated film require an extensive workforce including modular animator and lighting specialist, technical director, and rendering engineer. Each character must be designed with a detailed digital model that allow for expressive facial movement and realistic texture for Shark. These include designing complex surfaces such as swamp environment, clothing material, and natural lighting effects. Rendering these elements frame by frame requires substantial computing power and long processing time, both of which contributed to the core structure of the project. Another major component of the budget include character animation and motion design. Animation team focus heavily on facial expression and body language to give the character believable emotional reaction. The film's central figure Shark require particularly detailed animation because his personality is communicated through subtitle shift in expression and posture. Achieving this level of nose meant dedicating considerable resources to refining animation rigs and testing movement system. Although these technical development increase production costs, they also help establish a distinctive visual style that contributed to the film's success. A smaller but still important portion of the budget was allocated to wise performances, and talent participation. The film featured well-known actors such as Mike Meyer, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz. Hiring establishes performance often increase her production financial commitment, but it can also enhance the film's appeal and marketing potential in animation. The voice cast contributes significantly to the character identity, and recognizable actor can strengthen both storytelling and promotional visibility. In this case, the energetic performances of the cast becoming a defining element of the film's personality. The budget also supported story development and creative direction. Animated film often undergo extended period of scripted revision, visual experimentation, and design refinement before final production. Being directors such as Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen work closely with the writers, storyboard artists, and designer to refine the narrative tone and visual approach. This collaborative process involves numerous iterations of scene and character design, each requiring time and creative labor. While these stages may not be as visible as animation itself, they represent an initial investment in the quality of the final film. When comparing Shrek's production budget to the other animated film released around the same time, it cost appear relatively moderate. For example, Toy Story 2, produced by Pixar and released in 1999, reportedly had a budget close to the $90 million. Another contemporary film, Monster Increase 2001, was produced with an estimated budget of over $100 million. In contrast, Shark achieved comparable technical quality and storytelling impact with a significantly lower production budget. This suggests that DreamWorks maintain a careful cost management while still investing enough resources to create a competitive animated feature. Another analytical consideration include production efficiency. By keeping the budget near the 60 million range, DreamWorks reduce financial risk while still producing a visually polished film. Animation studios often balance technological ambition with cost control, since extended production time or complex rendering system can dramatically increase expenses. Shark development demonstrates how studio can allocate resources strategically to maximize creative impact without exceeding reasonable financial limit. Overall, the production budget of the Shark reflects a carefully structured investment across multiple areas of filmmaking. Funding supported animation technology, character design, voice performers, and the creative development, while remaining competitive with the budget of the similar animated film from the same period. By maintaining this balance, DreamWorks was able to produce a visually engaging and emotionally resonant film that stood alongside high budget competitors in the evolving landscape of the computer animated cinema. The domestic box office performances of the film provide an interesting example of how an animated film can expand its audience beyond traditional family demographic. In the context of the North America market, primarily in the United States and the Canada, film generated approximately $267 million in domestic box office revenue. This strong performances place it among the most successful animated release of its time and demonstrated that a comedic fairy tale parody could attract a broad audience base. From a regional perspective, the North American market has historically been one of the most important territories for animated film. Family entertainment often perform particularly well domestically because it appeals to multiple age groups and encourages repeat viewing. Shark benefited from this trend but it also expanding its reach beyond the typical children audience. The film's humor, culture references, and satirical tone attracting teenagers and adults who might not normally prioritize animated movies. The wider demographic appeal helped sustain ticket sales over several weeks in theaters. Audience trend at the time also contributed to the film's strong domestic reception. In the early 2000s, the computer generated animation was becoming increasingly popular, largely due to the success of the studios experimenting with the new digital technique. By the time Shrek was released by the DreamWorks Animation, viewers were already interested in seeing how studios would push the visuals and storytelling possibilities of CJ animation. This curiosity encourages audience to attend an animated film not for family entertainment but also for the technological spectacle and creative storytelling. Family audience, Shark is an occasionally strong recommendation. The film was designed to be accessible to both children and adults, creating a shared viewing experience that work well for parents and younger viewers watching together. Families who appreciate animated film with humor and playful storytelling will likely find the movie enjoyable. The visual style, expressive animation, and comedic pacing make it engaging for younger viewer, while the layer humor provide additional entertainment for older audience. This combination of visual excitement, light-hearted comedy make the film a reliable choice for family movie nights. Viewers who enjoy the fantasy comedy genre will also find the films appealing. The movie blend elements of fantasy setting with a comedic tone that often playful challenges traditional storytelling convention. Audience who like imaginative worlds but prefer a humorous approach rather than a serious or dramatic tone may respond essentially well to the film's style. The film may also be resonate with viewers who enjoy stories that emphasize theme of individuality and acceptance. Although the movie primarily function as a comedy, contain underlying ideas about embracing one's identity and valuing authenticity over appearance. These themes are presenting in a light-hearted and approachable members allow viewer to reflect on them without the films becoming overly serious. Audience who appreciate stories with emotional warmth and gentle moral message may find the movie particularly satisfying. However, the films may not be best choice for certain viewers. Individuals who strongly prefer serious fantasy, epic, or darker storytelling style may find the tone too comedic. The movie intentionally uses humor and steer rather than dramatic tension, which may feel less engaging for audience who prefer intense action or complex narrative conflict. Similarly, viewers who are not interested in animated film as a format might struggle to connect with the movie's visual style regardless of its storytelling strength. Some viewers may also be find that the film's humor reflect the cultural context of the early 2000s. While much of the comedy remain entertaining, a few references stylistic styles may feel dated or to audience who are curious try to more contemporary animated production. For viewers who are prioritize cutting edge animation technology, the film visual style may appear less advantage compared with modern release, although it remains historically significant with the development of the computer animation. The film is best suited for audience who appreciate animated storytelling that combine humor, fantasy, and emotional sincerity. Families, animated fans, and viewers who enjoy light-hearted fantasy comedy are likely to find the film entertaining and memorable. While it may not be appeal to viewers seeking serious dramatic narrative or highly modern animation techniques, it remains a charming and engaging film that continue to resonate with audience across different generations.